Hey everyone, my name is Rosie and welcome back to my channel. I have really been enjoying working in my collage journal lately, so I wanted to make a new spread in this thing today. So let's flip to a new page and see what kind of collage we can make. I think I randomly picked this book off the shelf. I guess I was sort of in a naturey mood. I wanted to do something with a landscape or animals. Not exactly sure, but I pulled this book off the shelf. The other thing I was thinking about was how none of the other spreads that I've done in my collage journal have been sort of a full bleed image. I've never taken a background image and had that sort of take up the entirety of the page before. And I was thinking maybe that is something we should try to do today, try to do something a little bit different. So when I saw some of these little landscapes in the front of this book, I was hopeful that I might be able to find one or two that might be wide enough to use in my journal. But unfortunately, none of them were sort of looking like they were quite going to be the right size. So I moved on to look at some of the animals. And the first animal I came across that I really liked and was sort of drawn to was this moose. I thought he was sort of a nice size and might be a nice focal point on the page, so I pulled the moose out. But I couldn't stop thinking about the little landscape images that were in the front of the book. And I was also thinking back to the postcard ghost collage that we made about a month ago. And I was able to make sort of a Franken city block with a bunch of different postcards. So I was thinking, why can't I do a similar thing with these landscape images? So I started pulling out a bunch of those, and I was sort of hopeful that we can maybe have some of the mountains line up, maybe do some other things to cover up some weird seams, but maybe we could create some sort of Franken landscape as the background for this. I did definitely feel like I was playing Tetris a little bit during all of this. I'm trying to figure out how the pieces can line up. Can these mountains line up? Do these, mounds of dirt feel similar? So it was a little bit of a challenge, but I did realize pretty quickly that I needed more sky in the images. A lot of these had pretty small skies, and I wanted at least an area where maybe I could put a bird or something flying in the sky at some point. So I needed more of a sky, so I brought out my handy dandy weather book. It's called Instant Weather Forecasting, and I found this book randomly at the thrift store one day. I didn't even know these types of books existed, but it's just a book that's full of different skies. It's, talking about different types of clouds and different weather patterns and things like that. But it really is just such a great book to find a whole bunch of skies. So I pulled that out and found sort of a neutral sky that I could use, and that filled up almost the entirety of the two spreads in the journal. I did have to sort of finagle another bit of sky to fill up a little bit of a sliver on one of the sides, which again, this whole entire thing was just playing Tetris with these landscape pieces. So I ended up putting together, I think, a pretty good Franken landscape, but I did have a couple sort of slivers of areas where I did need some other landscape, something to put back there to cover up a couple of bare spots on the page, but not too bad. I also wanted to go back into this book and pull out some more animals. We needed more going on in the scene. I needed animals to cover up some of these weird seams of these different landscapes sitting together. We needed a lot more happening in this page, so I went back in to grab more animals. So while I was cutting out all of these animals that I wanted to add to the scene, I had a lot of time to think. It takes 10, 20 minutes to cut out, a whole pile of animals. So I had some time to think. And, I was sort of trying to put this composition together in my head a little bit. And I liked the idea of having, these different landscape pieces and having a lot of different animals. But I did think, we're sort of missing a little bit of the Rosie pizzazz. There was nothing weird about this. It was, animals that live in nature on nature scenes. It was a little bit too expected. And so I was brainstorming, what can I do to make this feel maybe a little bit more unique, a little bit more fun? And my favorite thing to do is to put things that don't belong underwater. But I had already picked these landscapes as the background. And so I was thinking, how can I bring underwater to above water? So I'm thinking coral, I'm thinking fish, I'm thinking, jellyfish, anything that I can sort of bring into the scene that sort of confuses you on whether we're under the water or not. So I was able to find a whole lot of underwater things in the Extraordinary Things to Cut Out and Collage book. One of my new favorite books. I'm really obsessed with this book. There's always something in here that I want to use. And when I was looking through the 2 pages of coral that are in here, I was sort of thinking that we should stick to maybe one sort of color range. And so there are a good amount of pink corals. And I was thinking if we use these sort of pink red corals, we can also stick to a pink and red color scheme for the fish. Then we can have sort of some cohesion amongst the chaos. So we have this chaos of, moose and squirrels and coral and fish, but there is some sort of color separations. The things that are above the water, that are not under the water, will be, sort of green and brown, and the things that are underwater will be sort of pink and red. And at least we can have some sort of color separation. At least this is what I'm thinking in my head as I'm sort of cutting all these pieces out. The only way to really know is to get everything laid out on the page and see if it works. Now here's where things are landing with our sort of chaotic, are we under the water or not under the water scene. And I was definitely sort of going for more is better here. We had more backgrounds, we had tons of elements. I kind of wanted to just do something a lot more chaotic than I think I normally do. I tend to make pretty streamlined, simple, poignant collages that, have maybe a couple elements, but I really kind of wanted to make something pretty chaotic, and I think I accomplished that. And I will say, when I first put this together, before I glued it, I was looking at it and I thought to myself, I don't think that this is really that good. But I think it was just because it was a little bit different than what I normally make, and it was just a little bit different than my normal style, that I was feeling a little bit, is this fitting for me? Is this okay? But then I took a step back and stopped working for that day, and I came back the next day, and I loved it the next day. There were so many awesome things to look at. I sort of loved all this chaos and sort of the coral and the animals hiding behind the coral. There were so many things to look at and so many things that I loved about this piece. After taking some time away and coming back, I was completely in love and I was like, okay, let's glue it up and be done with this because I'm a fan. Let's do it. And here's the final piece all trimmed to the journal page edges. That really does make a huge difference when you don't have images sticking out everywhere. And I think this piece is so fun. I love how colorful it is, and I'm so glad I decided to make a full bleed image that takes up the whole spread. And I hope that you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!